Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Fran, and today I'd like to talk about the differences between the law of attraction and the law of assumption. As I've heard that a few people get hung up or attached to labels rather than using these tools in a flexible way to suit themselves. And I'd like to shout out to Caleb from Pluto's Gate, because I've seen that he's done a video on the subject just yesterday. And the funny thing is, I was thinking about the subject. I was thinking that I should do a video on this subject, and then I realized it just on 3 hours before. So at this time, I haven't watched this video yet. I've just seen the heading. So I might repeat his concept. This is not intentional. I did this on purpose to see if we'd come up with similar concepts or take different approaches. They probably will be quite different because it's more practical and direct. I tend to be more theoretical. But in any case, we'll see. The interesting thing about it is the synchronicity of me thinking about the subject while Caleb was doing a video on it. And I must say, this is not the first time that he answers my questions with his videos before I even have the chance to ask them, which just shows that everyone really is you pushed out. But I'm digressing. So let's get to the point. I hear that there are two camps of people, one on the law of attraction, the other one on the law of assumption side. Now, I'm not making fun of people on either side. It's human nature to pick a side, to search for the truth, to choose a path to the exclusion of another. We are used to think in binary terms, either or, black or white, all or nothing. We adopt dichotomies. We forget that life is much richer than that we are shades of grey in between the black and whites that the rational mind can't even grasp or fathom. We want to be right and to prove others wrong. But here's the thing, we need to let go of this paradigm in order to grow and expand. If quantum physics has taught us anything, is that there is only one truth, that which we believe and embrace completely, that which we surrender to, that which we choose to observe. So the truth is always necessarily subjective. There is no objective truth. Once we establish these, once we accept that what we choose to observe is the truth, then we lose the need to prove that what other people are observing is not the truth. It's true if it's true to you. Now, having established this, law of attraction and law of assumptions are just labels, tools, techniques. They're not fixed and unchangeable. They're not commandments. Even religious scriptures are interpreted by different people in different ways. Even legal norms are interpreted in different ways by different judges. Even the laws of physics keep changing as our understanding of the world changes and expands. So nothing is fixed. And one more thing. One of the most important premises of the law of attraction or assumption is that we trust the process, that we let go of a natural human need to control and just surrender. The need to understand logically and critically how something manifests comes from the ego self, from the conscious mind. Yet we've seen that decisions are really made by the subconscious mind below the level of conscious awareness. So this is the old way of thinking, which wants to put labels on things, to explain things logically, to understand the process, to know how things are manifested, how to produce a certain result. We really need to let go of the how. How is not up to us, not up to our rational mind in any case. What we need to understand is that our unconscious directs our fate in ways which our conscious mind could never have fathomed. So we have the power to reprogram our subconscious mind through acts of free will. How do we reprogram the unconscious? By changing our thoughts, which in turn change our beliefs, which in turn change our emotions and behaviors. You can look at this from the psychological perspective, if you will. A change in self-concept and behavior will elicit different responses from people around us and set in motion a process of change which will not only affect how we feel, but also how our physical circumstances and how people react to us. You can also look at this from the scientific perspective. Quantum physics has shown that everything is energy, and there is no separation between things. At the fundamental level, we are all one. We are all part of the quantum field, or quantum soup, as someone has poetically defined us. So our mental processes are not separated from physical matter and events. Thoughts are electrical signals passed through neural synapses in the brain, and the thoughts that we think shape our cerebral structure and connectivity. Our cognitive activity, our thoughts, how we think consistently actually affects the physical structure of the brain. So energy and matter are two labels of the same phenomenon. Subatomic particles can communicate instantaneously across the universe. Separation is an illusion. So my thoughts vibrate at a certain frequency and they resonate with like frequencies. When you tune guitar strings manually, you know that they're in tune when they vibrate at the same frequency. You can actually feel the vibrations amplify rather than listening to the sound. So the law of attraction focuses on this aspect of vibration and manifestation. When we think pleasant thoughts, we vibrate at a higher frequency and hence resonate or amplify this frequency in our life. On the other end, by thinking happy thoughts or positive thoughts, we also reprogram our subconscious mind to focus on what we want rather than what we don't want. And as the subconscious is directing our lives behind the scenes, it will draw in circumstances and people that are closer to what we want. From the spiritual perspective, spiritual teachers such as Neville Goddard are saying, live in the end. Adopt the state of the wish fulfilled. Assume that you already have that you wish, which you desire and want. Now, from the religious perspective, I quote and possibly paraphrase from the Bible, ask and it is given. Trust and you shall receive. Knock and it shall be open unto you. So you see, it doesn't say anywhere, this is how things you want will manifest. They are all completely different approaches, all looking at the same thing from a completely different point of view. Yet, they all say the same thing in different ways. The concept is the same. The core of the matter is, imagine that which you desire, revel in the pleasant feeling of it, feel as if you would feel if you already had it. Stop overthinking the method, the process, the labels. Just stay with the feeling. Now, the thing is, if you are really living in the end, in your head, the feeling automatically follows. If you live in the end, you already should feel as if you already had attracted or manifested that which you want. Think about it. When you were a kid and you were dreaming about things, how did you feel? Did you feel like a fool for imagining something that you wanted and didn't have? Or did you feel great? Period. I remember as a little girl, I was madly in love with this kid that was in my class. Once I walked past his house by chance, and when I realized that that's where I was, I imagined quite clearly bumping into his parents and that they would recognize me and ask me to come in. Now, I'm pretty sure I wasn't stalking the little guy, but I couldn't be sure completely. I can't remember, but I think that his house was on the path between my parents' house and my mum's shop. In any case, this is the version I'm sticking with. But I digress again. The thing is, I wasn't thinking to myself, now statistically speaking, this is extremely unlikely. How likely is it that his parents are going to walk past his house right now and decide to invite me in? Of course not. I was just a child lost in a fantasy. And the fantasy was fun. It didn't feel painful. I wasn't in a state of lack or angst because his parents were nowhere to be found yet. And guess what? I hear my name being called from behind. His mum recognizes me and asks me in. Now, this was my first encounter with manifestation, and of course I didn't know it then, and I certainly didn't have a name for it or a specific technique. I was a kid lost in my own imagination. I must have been 7 years old at the time, and I still remember the event as clearly as if it had happened yesterday. And the reason is that it struck me as odd how accurate and how immediate the thing had appeared out of nowhere. Now, does it matter if it happens through vibrations, through telepathy, body language, by collapsing the wave function of virtual probabilities, by shifting to a parallel reality? It might matter to your ego, to your logical, critically thinking mind, as it's a rational, conscious part of the brain's job to work out how things work. But the reason that we have evolved this part of the brain is so that we can replicate a certain favorable outcome and prevent unwanted outcomes from happening. Yet, if we can bypass the understanding and still manage to achieve the desired result, isn't it more important to live the life of your dreams than to understand how that is manifested in detail? The ironic thing is, in all of this, is that once you learn to consistently manifest that which you desire, you indirectly gain a much deeper understanding of the process than you would have achieved if you analytically thought about it alone. One thing is understanding something theoretically, a whole other thing is experiencing it directly. So we need to relinquish our need for control, to label, to explain. We need to accept that some things are at present, and maybe even forever, who knows, out of our mind's reach. This is why we have emotions and gut feelings to guide us when we are confused or when we lack the time and resources to break down a problem to its nuts and bolts. Unfortunately, as kids, we are taught to ignore our feelings, to toughen up, to keep our feet on the ground and our head below the clouds. We are taught to be realistic, for whatever that means. In other words, we should stop imagining and dreaming what we want and desire and just accept the status quo, or else we might seem stupid, naive, gullible, and we won't fit in anywhere. And so we start imagining that what we have is what we already see, or what we can have is what we already see, what we already have. We start believing that change is hard, that our fate is sealed, that the future is set in stone, and that we're just here to work, pay bills, eat, sleep, and repeat. My point is, we want to give an official name to this process so that we don't look stupid or gullible. We need to know exactly how it works so we can justify it to ourselves and to others. This is why I went into quantum physics, or I started looking into quantum physics. You see, I thought if the scientific establishment recognizes that observation affects that which is observed, the energy affects matter on a physical level, that we create our reality through our imagination, then my ego and my rational mind are safe. You see, it has become more important to us to prove that we are right than to be happy and to live a life of purpose and passion. We have completely forgotten to live in the process of understanding how life works. We are so lost in the rules of the game that we've even forgotten that we're playing and the reason why we decided to play in the first place. In the end, it doesn't matter what you call it or how a manifestation occurs. All that matters is that by changing the content of your subconscious mind, you can achieve what you want effortlessly and easily. Whether this happens because you attract through resonance and vibration, whether you shift to a different reality, whether you create a reality by collapsing a wave into a particle, whether you do it because your feelings, actions, and body language change It doesn't matter. It's not important, if not on a purely philosophical level. What I can tell you from my personal experience throughout my lifetime and having studied psychology is that psychology doesn't account for all the instances of manifestation. I could give you many examples of extremely unlikely circumstances and events which have manifested just like I had envisioned them, both positive and negative. Things that didn't depend on my actions, body language, and behavior. I'll give you just a few examples to explain what I mean. There was a time I manifested my present job. It was my dream job at the time. And I imagined myself in the uniform. I didn't feel stupid or bad about not having it. I simply imagined what it would be like to do it. I didn't have any resistance towards it. I didn't once think that it would be unlikely they hire me, etc. A few months later, a friend of mine who didn't know anything about the dream contacted me and told me that she had seen an advert for a job in that specific company, and she sent me the address. And I've now been in that job ever since for many years. Then there was a time I wanted to graduate in psychology, but didn't think I had the time, money, ability, etc. For years, I kept postponing my dream. Then I started doing yoga and Tai Chi, and naturally felt good. Forgot about university altogether. Voila, a friend asked me to go to an open day for a psychology university to find out some information for her. I did so and ended up enrolling and graduating eventually, a few years later, whilst my friend never did join in because she moved abroad. So it's like she came in on purpose to give me the information about the open day at university. Now, I won't bore you with all the details, but a similar thing happened with my diploma in cognitive behavioral hypnotherapy. A friend asked to come and stay at mine in order to do this course. So I decided to join her. Then they moved the course near her place. So I ended up staying at hers and doing the course. Thing is, I would never have enrolled in the first place had I known that I would have had to bother my friend and stay at her place. And then again, the same happened with my yoga teacher training course. I could go on forever. But once I started noticing the amazing coincidences, it was impossible not to see the underlying pattern. I could no longer consider it a sporadic event. But then I started thinking about unwanted stuff too, and the same pattern emerged. If I had any fears, insecurities, if I focus on unpleasant people and behaviors, they too would manifest right on cue. Have you ever noticed how unpleasant things come in three? It's a catch-22. You start focusing on the unwanted circumstances and unpleasant events and fears, and there you are, living in the end. Just not your desired end, you're living in the unwanted end. So it doesn't matter what you call it. What you focus on amplifies. And I have a few examples about this too. One clamorous one was my diploma exam. I had studied everything in the Italian literature program except 3 chapters. Just before I walked into the exam, I asked my friend 3 questions. And they were about those 3 chapters I had skipped. My friend was busy revising and couldn't answer them. A few minutes later, I was called in by the examining commission, and the Italian literature teacher asked me exactly those 3 questions, verbatim. Now, the funny thing about it is that while the teacher couldn't have heard me as she was behind closed doors, a group of my classmates had overheard the exchange between me and my friend, and when they heard the questions, they actually gasped in horror. They were shocked. I was only asked those 3 questions. I never even opened my mouth. As well as not knowing the subject, I was actually in shock myself. Years later, I kept repeating the same exact pattern in uni. Then I met an old friend of mine who had graduated with honours in law, and asked her whether she was afraid that she would be asked the one thing that she didn't know. And she laughed out loud. And she told me, why would I do that? I imagine they asked me about my favourite subject and topic, and I give a thorough and exhaustive answer. And guess what? They always do. Wow. So you see, again, it doesn't matter what you call it. What you focus on amplifies. What you focus on manifests. So focus on solutions rather than problems. Focus on self-worth rather than self-deprecation or self-criticism. Focus on gratitude rather than lack and anger. And if you find it impossible to do so, just go neutral. Observe the breath and switch off your rational mind. Let go of the need to control and surrender. Let go of the need to control, understand, label, and just surrender. It's as simple as that. So this is it for today. I hope you found this content interesting and most of all useful and helpful. In any case, thank you for listening. Have a wonderful awakened day.